Welcome to Sprinkle with Hope podcast with your host, Jason. We have an awesome guest with us today, Terry Tucker. He just wrote a book in October and released it, and his story is phenomenal. And so we're really looking forward to him kind of sharing some of the things that he's gone through. So, Terry, thank you for joining our show. We're so glad to have you on.
Well, Jason and Shane, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so Terry's having a little bit of a video problem today, but Shane and I are very familiar with these kinds of issues. So we'll grant him amnesty or whatever you want to call it. But so Terry, do you want to kind of just give a little bit of a background of kind of who you are, where you come from, kind of a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Chicago. I am the oldest of three boys. I'm 6'8" and played college basketball at the Citadel. I have a brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher at the University of Notre Dame. And then my middle brother is 6'6", and he was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association in 1983. My dad was 6'5". So if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on in front. But my mom was like 5'8". So, but she was the boss of all of us. It didn't matter how big or how strong or anything, where mom was always in charge. Right. So athletics, specifically basketball, was an important part of my life growing up. And as I said, I went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, on a basketball scholarship, despite having 3 knee surgeries in high school. And when I graduated from college, I moved home to find a job. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I was all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree, which basically meant I didn't know anything about business. Fortunately, was able to find that first job. I was at the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain in Dublin, Ohio. But unfortunately, I ended up living with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my grandmother and my father, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. In my professional career, I've been a marketing executive, a hospital administrator, a police officer, an undercover drug investigator, a SWAT team hostage negotiator, a school security consultant, a high school basketball coach, motivational speaker and author, and then most recently, a cancer warrior. My wife and I have been married for 27 years, and our only child, a daughter, is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy.
That's awesome.
And is an officer in the newly created United States Space Force. So
awesome.
That's in a nutshell, that's me.
That's awesome. So I noticed that you said you mentioned all the things that you are, and then you said, and last, you're a cancer warrior. And Terry, you said that kind of like, well, yeah, but that's what we're going to focus on, because I think your story is phenomenal. The way that when we were talking just before we came on, I can sense that you really have a passion for helping others. And Jason and I, that really, we're starting to learn that that's our calling, that's our duty, that's what we're going to do from here on out. And so tell us a little bit about your story and why you're sharing it to the world and those things.
Sure. So without a doubt, the biggest challenge of my life began in 2012 when I was diagnosed with this rare form of melanoma that presented on the bottom of my left foot. By the time the cancer was detected, it had spread to a lymph node in my groin. And because my form of cancer was so rare, there's only about 6,500 people in the US that get cancer, that get melanoma either on the bottom of their feet or the palms of their hands. It was recommended that I be treated at the world-renowned MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. And I want your audience to understand that what I'm going to describe is what I experienced during my cancer journey. I realize there are thousands and thousands of people out there who suffer terribly with their diseases, whether they be mental or physical. Right. And I make no claims to have the market cornered on suffering. But one thing I've learned is that suffering is one of life's greatest teachers. So at MD Anderson, I had 2 surgeries to remove the tumor and all the lymph nodes in my groin. And I had a skin graft to close the wound on the bottom of my foot where the cancer had been cut out. And after I healed, I was put on a weekly injection of a drug called interferon to help keep the disease from coming back. My my oncologist used to say, it's like what we're doing is basically kicking the can down the road and hoping we can come up with additional therapies for you. For me, interferon was a horrible, nasty, debilitating drug. And I took those weekly interferon injections for 4 years and 7 months before the medication became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees, which
Wow.
usually isn't compatible with being alive.
Right.
While I was on interferon, it gave me severe flu-like symptoms for 2 or 3 days every week after each injection. I lost 50 pounds during my therapy. I used to tell my wife that I felt I was so skinny that I could probably go hang gliding on a Dorito. No, but I mean, you sort of have to make light of this in a lot of ways, but I basically had the flu for 5 years. I was, constantly nauseous, fatigued, and chilled. Even my ability to taste food diminished. And this misery went on, and I did count this up, for over 1,660 days. And one thing I've learned during all my pain and suffering is that you have two choices. You can succumb to the debilitating discomfort and misery, or you can learn to embrace it and use it to make you a stronger and better human being. Please understand that there were days that I felt so poorly and I was literally in so much agony that I honestly prayed to die. I just wanted out of this life. And for me, each day was a struggle to use my mind to override the apathy and the distress that my body was feeling. I was no better dealing with pain and discomfort than the next person, but every day I found a way to survive with the knowledge that I'd need to do it again the following morning. And I know we're talking about positivity and things like that, but unfortunately, my cancer experience this isn't a feel-good story. This isn't something that, hey, he conquered his disease. Really, literally, right after the interferon was stopped in 2017, the cancer came back, and my only treatment option ended up being the amputation of my left foot in January of 2018. Cancer returned again in 2019, requiring 2 additional surgeries. Last year, an undiagnosed tumor in my ankle grew large enough to fracture my tibia, my shin bone, which required the amputation of my leg above the knee. And then further testing revealed that I have multiple tumors in my lungs right now, and I'm going through a clinical trial to try to deal with those. But I just refused to be a victim to this malignancy. I vowed to continue my fight. I knew the only way the cancer could win is if I gave up or I gave into the disease or it killed me.
Yeah. And I think your story is awesome because it's that human spirit, right? That we want to continue to fight to live, right? Even if we're going through a difficult thing. And that, like you said, it could be, with yours, it was this cancer that was taking over. It could be a mental thing. It could be anything, right? And so as you were dealing with these difficult things, was there kind of some things that you did to help you? Was it your mind? Was it, what was it that kind of helped you push through that?
It really was my mind. I did, prayer has been a very important thing in my life. I pray for at least an hour every day. And I don't pray for me. I don't pray that, God takes away this cancer. Well, that's not entirely true. I do occasionally pray for that because I certainly would like that. But I have met so many other people along my journey, whether they be, cancer sufferers or people suffering with some type of other affliction, that just they need help. And that, so I don't profess to be some big guru, but I have a Post-it note that is here on my desk that I see every day. And it has just 3 simple sentences on it. And I'll share those with you because I really kind of think those are my, for lack of a better word, maybe my truths or some of my truths right now. And the first one is this: you need to control your mind or it will control you. The second one is you need to embrace your pain and your suffering and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third one is, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. I wish I could write a book or bottle whatever. I found a way to take all this pain that I've experienced, all this suffering, and turn it inside. most people want to run from it. It's painful,
Right,
get away
right.
from it. For me, I've done the opposite. It's like, okay, bring it on. And I've turned it inside and I use it as fuel or energy to make me stronger, to make me more determined. And like I said, I wish I knew how to do that, but I always tell a story. When I was a little kid, I was so afraid of doctors and getting a vaccination. Whenever I knew my mom was taking me to the pediatrician to get a shot or a vaccination, I'd wait till she got out of the car and then I'd lock all the doors from the inside, and this was before key fobs, so you would have to go in and get the pediatrician. And it was kind of a cat and mouse game to get me out of the car. And then the pediatrician literally over his shoulder carrying me into his office. That's how afraid I was of medicine and healthcare and things like that. And now it's just like, give me a shot. Okay, give me another one. I use that pain just to make me stronger. And for me, it's worked.
That's awesome. I love that you shared those three, what you call truths. The second one for me really hit me. Of course, Jason and I have talked about the mind and it being a strong and powerful thing. But if I remember right, your second one was embrace your pain. And to me, that told me that every one of us is going to have some type of pain, whether it be physical or mental, whatever in this life. And we have to learn how to live with that, not die from it, but live with it. And I think you're doing an amazing thing, Terry. Really, truly, I sense your spirit and your passion for life. And I'm very grateful that you never gave up, and you're continuing to fight and those things. So I just appreciated the fact that you shared that, and that it really hit me that we all have something that we're going to deal with in life, and it's our choice to decide how we deal with that or how we overcome it.
It is. And I always tell people this, and I had it right. See, this is what happens when you get old, you forget things and stuff like that. So I remembered it. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. We're all going to have pain in our life, but you have to decide whether you're going to suffer with that pain or not. I remember I had a nurse. I'm on a clinical trial drug now that is really, it kind of devastates my body. And I do I shake, I throw up, I do all kinds of really fun, interesting things that I'm sure people are now thinking about in their minds. And she came into me one day and she said, Terry, none of us would think anything less of you if you stop this trial, that this is so hard on your body that we wouldn't think anything less of you. And I looked at her and I said, they may pull me off the study for whatever reason, or I may die on the study, but I'll never quit the study, because that's, I told you those three truths. Those are my truths. I can't quit, especially since I wrote a book about kind of, not quitting. It's kind of like when you write the book, you kind of have to go down with the ship, so to speak. But, in a way, it's true. I take that pain, and yes, it's hard, and yes, it stinks and all that kind of stuff, but I take it and I use it in a positive way, as opposed to, oh, woe is me, and oh, look how much I'm suffering and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, everybody's suffering. Nobody can. I mean, I don't mean to be crass, but nobody cares about your suffering. I care about your suffering. I care about other people, and I try to help them and stuff like that. But the people that are constantly whining and complaining, I mean, those are people that never do anything with their lives, because they're always worried about, why I'm not there, why I'm here. Well, that's because you're always whining and complaining. Do what you need to do to get there, and stop worrying about, the fact you don't like where you are right now.
Yeah. And it goes back to what Shane and I have been preaching for a while, and that is taking action and doing something that is hard or difficult. I mean, you're right. We all have pain and suffering. How do we deal with that? I mean, we have pains in a different way probably than you do. I mean, yours are very physical. You can see them. Sometimes our pains aren't as, that you can't see what's going on, or we try to hide it. Right.
Right.
But I think it goes back to just doing what needs to be done. And I think, as you were kind of talking about the study that you're in, I think that goes back to your core belief in helping people, because if you can through this study, they can find out that it's going to help people, then that's amazing. That's amazing, right?
It is. And I just found out yesterday that they want to literally start over. I am, from what I understand, one of the few people in the study that is seeing positive results. The tumors in my lungs are actually shrinking, not by a lot, but hey, at this point, I'll take anything I can
Yeah,
get.
for sure.
So they are shrinking, and now they want to add another drug on top of this. And I said to them, so, okay, we can just stay where we are and then move forward with the new drugs. Like, no, we have to go back to square one. And the first 2 weeks, the first 2 cycles of this study, I am literally at the hospital from like 6 o'clock in the morning till like 10 o'clock at night. And it just wears you out. And I'm like, so you want to start over again, And I thought, well, what about other people? And they're like, nobody's as far along in the study as you are. So, I mean, literally, I am the guinea pig. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna see if you can handle it, you can survive it, and what issues it presents to your body that that hopefully we can deal with. So, and you're right. I do look at that. How can I help somebody else who I may not even know? Who may benefit from this study 10 years from now when I'm long gone. So if I can make a difference in their lives, I'm certainly willing to try that.
So we've mentioned your book a few times. What's the title of that book again?
The title of the book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life.
Okay, awesome. And it released in October. That's just, I think your story is phenomenal. I think what I was thinking about was that you have had a physical thing happen to you, but your mind is the thing that you're not giving up on, right? I have been fortunate enough to not have any major health problems. Growing up early on, I had a lot of allergies and those things. Hopefully I've kicked all those, but I've been pretty fortunate to not have to deal with those health problems. But I was thinking that you have not given up on your mind, that really is the driving force behind your fight and your will to show other people that you can do it. So don't give up on that, Terry.
I won't. And it's funny because I'm one of those people that I look a whole lot better in clothes than I do out of clothes, and if you were to look at my body, the scars, the almost 5 years of interferon, my entire abdomen and kind of love handle area is all scar tissue. I'm missing a leg. I mean, all these scars are, if you look at them, ugly, but I look at them like, you know what? I earned those.
Yeah.
I earned those scars. And while I may not look good naked, I earned all that stuff. And that, so yeah, I don't, I don't look at it and say, oh, you're really ugly. I mean, I am, but it's not something that I dwell on. It's like, yes,
Right.
I may be physically ugly, but the mental side of the house, totally in order right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Totally. And I agree with Shane in that. I think, your mental mind, that really, I don't think we really truly understand the power of the mind, really. And maybe none of us ever really will. But I think that there's so much energy and power if we just think things through and, think, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to, the mind is really, really powerful. And I think that you're using it to your advantage. I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is you're using it to help you get through this really difficult time in your life.
Well, I think one thing that I've learned is the mind is so much stronger than the body.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what you're trying to say in a nutshell.
Right.
That, there are, no matter how much pain you can bring on yourself, you have choices, and you have choices in everything in life, how you attack it, how you don't attack it. I don't want to deal with this. I mean, when it was initially found out that I had these tumors in my lungs, my doctor was like, well, we want to start you on chemotherapy. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. And so, it's just my wife and daughter and I. So we had a family meeting and I was outvoted 2-1. And so I started chemotherapy. And, it was, I had a choice, and I have a
Yeah.
choice with the clinical trial. Do you want to continue to do this? You don't have to do it, but what are the benefits? And it's kind of like you said, if we can slow down and think, and stop thinking, well, this is right now. All we have to do is right. Yes, right now is all we're guaranteed.
Sure.
But if you can think about the ramifications of your decisions and how they might impact people positively, like I said, down the road, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that's a pretty awesome thing, to help people that you've never even met. So yeah, I really think you have choices of how you want to do things. And like I said, my truths are, I'm never quitting. I'm never giving up. I may die. They may take me out to study, but like I've always said, everybody dies, but not everybody really lives. And I
Yeah.
think helping
I
people
love that.
is a way to have your life say it had meaning. I actually lived this life.
Yep. I have no doubt that someone hearing this right now is inspired by your story. Have no doubt. I am. So I know
Oh,
other
absolutely.
listeners are as well. I sincerely appreciate the fight and the battle that you constantly have every day, but that you're not willing to give up. I commend you for that. I really do. Hopefully, Terry, someday we can meet.
I'd love that. I mean, I love people, I
Yeah.
love talking to you. We can't do, face to face with COVID and stuff, but
Right.
this has been a great forum.
Absolutely. And I think that this has been a great forum, and it's, and Shane and I have had such a privilege of meeting some amazing individuals like yourself that just have such a awesome story. And it could be, a physical thing. It could be, other issues that they have dealt with, just, extenuating circumstances or whatever that's come up in their lives. And they just don't, every story seems to be that they just don't let that get in the way of them enjoying life and really seeing the beauty that surrounds us. Right. I mean, we have the choice to say, well, this sucks, or this is amazing, and I'm just going to deal with these circumstances that are presented to me.
And you're right. And I recall a quote I heard a long time ago, because I mean, really my passion as of late is kind of helping people find and live their purpose. And
Yeah.
I remember a quote that Mark Twain said, that the two most important days of our lives are the day we're born and the day we figure out why. And, and I think that's incredibly powerful, because I'm sure we all know people who, they're just going through the motions every day. They're not growing. They're not living. They're not finding their purpose. And, there's a reason that we were all born. And I believe that we're all destined to live uncommon and extraordinary lives. And that has nothing to do with, what kind of job we have, or how much money we make,
Right.
or what kind of car we drive, or anything like that. We know this. We're not all born with the same gifts and talents, but we all have the ability to become the best person that we're capable of becoming.
I agree with you 100%. I couldn't have said it better. Beautifully said, Terry. So Jason and I have come up with a thing that we call
The
double down dose.
DDD, huh?
Yep.
Yep.
Triple D.
Yeah. That's right. So Jason has a question, then I have a question.
So Terry, we ask these questions to all of our guests that we've had on our show, and it really comes back to what Shane and I believe in, right? The purpose of why we're driving, the things that we're driving. So the first question is how would you define hope?
How would I define hope? I don't know if I can define it, but I could probably give you an example of it.
Yeah,
When my dad had cancer, and my dad died in his early 50s, he had breast cancer back in the 80s, which back then was incredibly rare. They really didn't know how to treat it. And when he was diagnosed, he was in stage 4. It was basically like go home and die. But his oncologist, his cancer doctor, spent an inordinate amount of time researching and trying different drugs. And even, and this is going to sound really disgusting, they thought it could possibly be, as it is in women, hormonal, and they removed his testicles. And when my dad died, after, literally was diagnosed as you're dead, just go home and wait to fall over. He lived 3.5 years. And I really think that was because his oncologist tried all these new things. And because he was willing to try these things, what he gave our family was hope. And I remember writing him a letter after my dad died and telling him just that. It's like, you know what? We had no hope when he was diagnosed. And you spent the last 3.5 years always giving our family and him a reason to keep going, a reason to live. So that, I guess that's the best. I don't know if I can define it, but that's certainly in my mind, somebody who's like, there's absolutely no way you can do this. You know what? Well, if I can find a sliver of light, a sliver of something that maybe I can hang on to, that's hope. As opposed to, I've got nowhere to go with this. There's nothing I can do. You can always do something. So I guess hope is always there. You just got to find it.
Yeah. And I think he's allowed you to see that now, where you're continuing your fight because he showed you the things that he fought for. So I believe that he gave you that hope and you're carrying it on. That was well said. So our second part of Double Down Dose is, how would you define love?
And I don't mean to be flippant by this. I don't think you can define love. I mean, we are all conceived, born, whatever you want to say, in love. There's a great story that I like to tell about Alexander the Great, who was dying. And so he calls his counselors together and says, hey, I want you to carry out my final 3 wishes. My first wish is that only my doctors carry my coffin to the grave. My second one is I want the road to the cemetery strewn with gold and silver and precious stones. And the third one is I want my hands to be carried, hanging out of my casket. And someone says, Alexander, those are pretty, pretty weird wishes. Why do you want those? And he said, well, number one, I want my physicians to carry my body to the grave because I want people to realize that no doctor can cure anybody. They're helpless to do anything other than help the body heal itself. And the second thing he said was, I spent my entire life pursuing fame and fortune and conquering people and things like that. And yet none of my gold, none of my power, none of my prestige is going with me to the next life. And third, he said, I want my hands hanging out of my casket because I want people to realize that I came into this world empty-handed and I leave it the exact same way. The only thing in my mind that we can take to the next life, and I believe in my heart, there is a next life. There's something on the other side of this. And this is going to probably sound nuts, and I'm sure every psychiatrist in Colorado will be on my doorstep, but I'm almost looking forward to what's next, to that next life that we have. But the only thing that I think we can take to that next life is the love that we have in our hearts, the caring that we have for each other, the willing to say, you know what, I was born in love. I learned to hate. I learned all these things that are negative. I wasn't born that way. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I really think love is just something. It's who we are. It's how we came to be. It's what I believe that our Creator is the definition of what love is.
Yeah. The beauty of these two questions are they are fairly simple, and we get completely different opinions and ideas. And that's the beauty of that, is that every one of us is unique and different, and we have our different opinion. And so I sincerely appreciate the time that we've spent today with you, Terry. I have been inspired by your story and your will to fight. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to you.
Well, thank you, Shane. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Terry, I do think you answered that question perfectly, in that really is love. That's why we're here. That's what we're doing, right? Like, that's the whole essence of our being, is to love. We were created from love. I remember back to the days when each of my kids, my 3 sons, were born, and that's love right there, right? Somebody who you just met,
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you look around this country and you see the beauty in this world, and you see a child being born and things like that, I don't know how you can. I mean, it almost at this point brings me to tears. You know, I mean, the emotion of love is so powerful and can overcome so much. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, and right there, you know, my wife is going through pain and suffering, right, and all of these things, and yet it, you know, to her, it's the most joyous time of her life, and mine as well, right? Like we were there together, and so thank you for sharing what you've shared today. I am inspired as well, and I appreciate us getting to talk to you and getting to know you a little bit, and I really do hope that we can meet you in person someday. We hope that all this can go away, and you know, we can get past this COVID issue that we're in right now, and get back to, you know, socializing and meeting people, because that's really important.
That connection, it is. It's so important. It just fosters what we were just talking about, love. You know, having that connection. Real, you know, we're all the same. You know, we put labels on everything these days. It seems like, but we're just people. You know, and we have so much more in common than we have different. And if people would realize that, I think we'd all be a whole lot better off. Yeah,
I totally agree. So thank you, Terry.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Before we let you go, how can people get in touch with you? Or
so I have a website. It's called motivationalcheck.com. And every day I put a new thought for the day up. I put my Monday morning motivational message up on there. Say that 4 times fast. And you know, I put different videos and stories up there, short ones, because I know people are pressed for time. So, you know, quick, go in, get a little motivation, a little inspiration, and move on. So motivationalcheck.com, you can access my book through there. You can access my social media sites as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Terry. Appreciate you coming on with us today.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.